Now, Philip, officials from China's State Council just announced that they're going to hold a second press conference in as many weeks, probably tomorrow, on the arrest in Hong Kong. Does this mean that Beijing is preparing to step in and take control of the situation?
Well, let's put it this way, shall we, Annette? I think there is growing frustration on all sides about the situation in Hong Kong. The demonstrators are frustrated about Carrie Lam not giving in to what they want. Carrie Lam is frustrated with the demonstrators, and the powers in Beijing are frustrated with Carrie Lam also, Hong Kong's ruler, chief executive, for not being able to put the lid on these protests. So if you remember, the last time there was a press conference, they made it clear, the authorities in Beijing, that they were not going to intervene in this, and it was up to Hong Kong's governor and the rulers in Hong Kong to try to sort this situation out. The fact they're going to hold another press conference tomorrow could be interpreted as an ominous sign. We'll have to wait to see what they do, but there is growing expectation that if this situation, this standoff continues, as it has been continuing, then the authorities in Beijing are going to lose their patience, and then they're going to intervene. And what is a bit more ominous in all of this is that you may remember last week there were images posted, a very short little video posted of troops in China gearing up for what looked like armed intervention. And many people were saying, well, is this a sign that China and Beijing are willing now to step in Hong Kong to try to end these protests?
Now, these protests began over a contested extradition bill. Now, that's since been shelved by Carrie Lam. So why are they continuing?
Well, the original extradition bill, you're right, was shelved, but Carrie Lam didn't say she was going to abandon it completely. So the protesters are worried that it's been shelved. Basically, it meant that under this new legislation, people could be taken off to mainland China to face trial and not be tried in Hong Kong, and they said that was unacceptable. They want that to be totally abandoned. That hasn't been the case. Carrie Lam said, OK, we will put that on the shelf for the time being and we'll forget about it. But it doesn't mean it won't come back at a later date. But that's not all the protesters are worried about. They want to be responsible for electing the chief officer of Hong Kong, the chief executive, which they can't do for the moment. They also want to be able to elect the national executive in Hong Kong, which is something they don't have the power to do either. And they're calling for an inquiry into these so-called triads, groups of mafia who are reported to have moved in last week on Sunday to beat protesters in a way to intimidate them. And Carrie Lam has replied saying that there will not be an inquiry because the police are launching their own inquiry into that. So with all of these demands, which are not met by the chief executive of Hong Kong, who said she's not going to cave in, the protesters are not going to give in. That's why we see this situation spiralling somewhat out of control over the last few days, and more people joining in the protest. As you said, civil servants for the first time, planes have been disrupted, trains have been disrupted. The subway system is also suffering today. Trains not running there either. So it's very difficult to know at the moment how any kind of an agreement is going to be found between the national executive in Hong Kong, i.e. Carrie Lam, and the protesters.
Philip Turle, thank you for that.